Hi, and welcome to our Studio Refresher webinar for the Americas. I'm Tramley Jones, Ftrack's VP of Solutions, and we're excited to guide our fellow artists and supervisors on how to get the most out of Ftrack Studio, show our latest features, tips and tricks, and more. We'll run through our workflow schemas, our task spreadsheets, attributes, including saving and sharing views of the data, advanced attributes, custom attribute links, version, spreadsheet, roles, and of course more. But before we jump in, I'd like to introduce my colleagues who will be running the webinar. It'll be Eric LaPlante, who is our product specialist based in Los Angeles. We also have Justin Luther, our regional sales manager, who can answer any of your sales questions, should you have any. We expect this webinar to last about 45 minutes, so please use the Q&A panel for your questions, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. If we don't get to all your questions in this webinar, don't worry about it. We'll follow up with you shortly afterwards. So let's begin. Over to you, Eric.
Thanks, Tram. And let me just load my screen here. Awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction, Tram. As you mentioned, my name is Eric. I'm the product support specialist based here in Los Angeles, and we're going to go over several different blocks here today, starting with workflow schemas and really defining what they do and why they're important. So the core of all projects in Ftrack are going to be their workflow schemas. They will have three components to them. They're going to have tasks, milestones, and objects. So when you think about an object, think of an object like a container. It's an object is going to contain A, other objects, or B, tasks. So here we can see we have our tasks, and then we have our milestones that are all going to be like things like key deliverable dates. The objects are going to be things like shots or sequences or assets or folders. I mean, an object can literally be anything that you want it to be. So another key component of a workflow schema are going to be types, and types are really going to define like the type of work or like the tasks like that you work within Ftrack. So types will have like their own section, and in the system settings view. And when you create a type, you are essentially defining what will the task be. So oftentimes there's a question: is this can you create subtasks? Well, no, but the reason why that we don't have subtasks is because we have task types. So task types will be the description or the classification of the type of work, and then the task name will be specific to the work. So in my world, let's say we're coming from compositing and we need to break out the work into different compositing tasks into basically subtasks. You'll use the same task type, but different task names. And it, like in here, we can see some of the examples like for different task types. So right, we have the modeling task type or the compositing. And then like if I wanted to categorize a type for like an asset, like a character or vehicle or environment, I can also categorize it that way as well. So we're going to access the workflow schemas by going to System Settings, Workflow, and then Schemas. So within this view, we can see the existing workflow schemas. We can create new ones, or we can clone existing ones to use as templates to build off of. So within the workflow schemas, what we're going to focus mostly on today here are the objects and the tasks and the statuses. Milestones are a key component of it, but milestones, you usually inherit some of the statuses that you create for tasks, and we'll go over task templates. The task templates is an optional step within creating a workflow schema, but it is an important one. And then from this view, like each of these fields have the edit button where we can add or remove different statuses or objects specific to that selection. So as I mentioned, the objects and tasks, or I should say the objects, types, and statuses that go into a project are going to be created outside of the workflow schema in the system settings, workflow, and then this category here under statuses. So each has its own menu set, and each will be dictated or be used specific to multiple, or a single or multiple projects. And a side note, the top-down order that you're seeing in these views is actually going to dictate the order that these things like statuses or task types, or I should say types or objects are shown in your project. So the order going from top down will actually be kind of dependent. So here, in this example, like here, we can see we have the modeling type over the compositing type. So if I were to create these two tasks, the modeling task would be on top of the compositing task. And if we continue along here, what we can see is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new a new workflow schema. We're going to call it my first schema. And then we are going to create a new task type. We're going to create a grading task. And I'm kind of speeding this up here. But what we want to do here is the order of operations that we want to have for our particular project is going to be modeling, then compositing, then grading. Now you can already see that modeling is on top of compositing, so that will show before the compositing task. But what we need to do is we need to add the grading task below the compositing task. And you also see that there is a little exclamation point, excuse me, next to the grading task. What this means is that it has not been mapped to a project. So it's a nice visual cue to say that you've created a type, but it's not associated with a workflow schema yet. So here I'm going to move the grading task below the compositing task, save the changes on the lower right. And then I'm going to go back into the workflow, or excuse me, the schema, and then add we're going to start populating like the workflow schema. So for simplicity, we're going to keep it just add shots, and then we're going to add the statuses to the shots and to the tasks to the milestones. So I'm just going to speed up through this process here. So each panel will allow you to add these statuses on the left and then the types on the right. I'm going to do the same for versions. And then, as I mentioned, the task templates, though not a necessary step, it is an important one, especially when you want to start automating some of these workflows. We'll go through right here. So we're going to create a task template. And we're going to call it my shot template. And then we're going to enable the modeling, compositing, and grading task types that we created. We're going to close that. And then next, we're going to go ahead and create a project. So we're going to create new project. A new dialog window will open up. We're going to give it a name. We're going to select the workflow that we've just created. And then we're going to create the project. So it's going to prompt us to navigate into the project, and we're going to be greeted with the task spreadsheet page. And then I'm going to create a shot. We're going to call this XH10. And then we're going to select the task template and create it. So here what we've done, just to summarize, is that we've created a workflow schema. within that workflow schema, we've created a custom task type called grading. We've added a task template that uses 3 tasks: modeling, compositing, and grading. And we've ordered those by priority, like we've ordered those tasks. So what we see here in the side, or in the task spreadsheet view, will mirror what we see in the types view of the system settings. And then what we also done is then added added this view to like our project. So this is what we'll be seeing when other members log into it. So the next section, we're going to be talking about scheduling within the task spreadsheet, and more specifically using the Gantt Scheduler. So within the task spreadsheet view, we can organize our information, our data, in like a couple different ways. And a very useful tool is to use the Gantt Scheduler, which is shown here on the upper portion of the screen. And we're going to enable the Gantt Scheduler as such. So it's going to create a split view. And when we want to create a task, we just simply need to left click and drag on the Gantt Scheduler to show the task. And as a side note, when you create a task, which will typically exist underneath an object, in this particular case is a shot, the shot start and end dates are always going to inherit the earliest start date and the latest end dates of the task within it. So here we can see we're adjusting the time. And if I have save changes turned off automatically, I can just use the Control Z to undo like any change if I don't want to commit them to the spreadsheet automatically. So here I'm moving out the tasks out to like the next week, and moving the modeling task like to the previous week back again. And then again, you'll see the shot will inherit the start and end dates. So another tip, if you need to move, let's say we need to move the shot out a week, I can just select the shot, and then the tasks, which are children of the shot, will also move along or inherit that change. So some other features that we have is built into Ftrack is what we call match bid duration and auto linking tasks. So the matched bid duration is going to be a very helpful tool if when creating your shots, you haven't defined the start or end date, but when you click on the Gantt Scheduler to create a task, is going to use the values that you've already inputted as the bid hours or days for that particular attribute. And then here we can see the links, which are relationships between different objects in the task spreadsheet view. And what we just saw as well is if we, in the Gantt Scheduler, you can also see that there's a little blue line showing that we've created a link between the compositing and grading tasks. And if we double click on that line there, it's going to open up another dialog, which will show us like where the link is coming from, going to, and if you have any sort of overlap between them. So we're also able to change the overlay of the Gantt Scheduler view. So right now I'm showing the type the type color code, which is dictated or set up in the system settings workflow types. And this is configurable, so you could choose any color variation that you want for this. This will also, like these overlays will also include things like logged hours or statuses. So here I am going to update the bid hours, and I'm going to select adjust to bid, which is going to update the start and or I should say the end date of the task that has already been created. So as a note, the adjust to bid is really only going to be useful for you if you do not have match bid duration turned on. With it turned off, you'll be able to utilize this feature. So we're going to start with a clean slate, and we're going to create a shot. We're going to call this shot 10. We're going to use the task template, and then we're going to log in some bid hours here. 10 hours, 6 hours, and 12 hours for the different tasks. We are going to make sure auto bid or auto link tasks and match bid duration is turned off. So when you see when we draw like in the Gantt scheduler, it is not taking into the account the bid hours. But if I shift select the tasks, right click and adjust to bid, it will update as such. And then we're going to go ahead and create another shot with using the task template. And this time we're going to add the bid hours, but we're going to turn on match bid duration and auto link task. So now it is going to use the bid duration and auto link these tasks between one and the other. What I'm doing next here is that I've assigned myself to a task, and then I'm going to log some hours into the task so I can show the overlay feature, or specifically the log time overlay feature. On the upper right, I have the track time button, which allows me to select a task, and I can start logging time to my task. If I type in 4H, H for hours, M for minutes, it will log in 4 hours for that task. And then if I change the overlay to log time and refresh the page, you will see that I've logged in 4 hours out of the total 5 hours allotted for that particular task assignment. So next, we're going to look into the built-in attributes and how we can save views within these spreadsheets. So Ftrack ships with a lot of built-in attributes that you can expose or add to these views, and then save these and share these views with other team members. So you can find them by navigating to the gear drop-down attributes, and then we can select whether it's going to be a task attribute or a note attribute or a custom attribute even. And so when we add an attribute or a note or task attribute, it's always that the newly created attribute is always going to show up on the right. And then you can drag and move the new attribute to a different spot like on the spreadsheet. And also, as a side note, anytime that you make a change to the spreadsheet, specifically like when you're adding or like removing different attributes or the order, the view drop down here where it says default is going to be highlighted in purple. That's going to show that you've made a change to the view. And it's going to, if you don't save that change to the view, it's going to revert back to its initial state. So within attributes here, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the start date. And again, so now you see the default view is no longer highlighted in purple. What we can do then is we can start looking into adding different filters or groups, which are also going to be included into saved views. Here are a couple of saved views that I've already created. And once we've set up our page the way we want it, we can hit save to update or save as to create a new one. And then when we want to share it, we'll go into manage views. So within the management views dialog, we'll select the views that we want to create. And then we can choose to share it with the entire team or with individuals or groups. So here I'm adding Helena and Lorenzo, and I'm also adding the tracking and rigging groups. And then we can also save it as the project default. So the default view will be the setup, or when we can and that's what everyone will see. And then we can also save it as the global default. But just as a tip, and this is more of a preference, I don't like saving these as the global defaults because it overwrites the default view. So I just do that on the project level, like never on the system level. But that's a preference, really. And so here we have, so what we're going to look at next is creating or using adding custom attributes or cell formatting within these attributes within specific views. So right now I'm in my production view and I'm looking at all the task assignments. And what I want to see here is like any sort of flags or like any sort of overages. So a built-in custom attribute that we have is the plus minus hours. So kind of the breakdown of what you're seeing here is the bid hours is the input of the hour of the work that you're like bidding out at. The worked hours is the log time. The plus minus hours are showing you like how much over or short is remaining like within the work that is with the work that has been logged in. So in this shot 50 animation task here, if I navigate over, I've logged 24 hours, or I bid out this task to be 24 hours long, but the artist has logged 26.5 hours. So I'm seeing I'm flagging it like the potential overage at 2.5 hours. And then like some other formatting that we can do here is what we call fuzzy dates. So as opposed to giving a specific date, we're giving the date like in relation to the present. So like if it was 2 weeks out, it will say 2 weeks, like in 2 weeks, or if it was a couple of weeks ago, it will say a few weeks ago or a month ago. And then from the column here, if I select cell formatting, I can change it from like fuzzy to standard. So here what we'll do is we're going to run through an example of creating a group, adding some attributes to the task spreadsheet view, saving that view and sharing that view with the group we just created. So under system settings, resources and users and groups, I'm going to add a new group and I am going to call it production. I'm going to add some team members to it. Then back into the project, I'm going to add a few attributes, the plus and minus, the worked hours. I'm going to rearrange them, save it. I'm going to call it production view. And then I'm going to change the cell formatting, log some times so we can see a alert show up and by refreshing the page. Then go ahead and update the save view, go into the manage views. And then I am going to select the production group that I created before. And so that will be a shared view with the other production team members. All right, so now we're going to go look at custom attributes. Now, with custom attributes are going to be any attribute that you want to define that's something that's not built into Ftrack. So it's going to be a very powerful tool when you want to import or use unique data sets for your projects. So custom attributes are accessed the same ways as attributes, like from the gear dropdown. We're going to select attributes and we're going to go ahead and create the attributes. So there are different types of attributes that you can create. So like a Boolean is going to be a checkbox. A dynamic enumerator is going to be a drop-down menu whose information is typically pulled from the API. Enumerator is a drop-down menu, like with text or numeric fields. Expressions, which we'll go here in a moment, and links, which we'll get into a little bit later, and then number and text attributes. So within these attributes, we can also use these custom attributes to filter by. And then we can see these attributes within, depending on what we've tagged them to, we can add these to things like lists or versions or objects within Ftrack. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm in the versions spreadsheet view, and we're seeing the custom attributes that can be showed up on the side panel. And where we could edit or add those different values as well. So if I go ahead and create a new attribute, attributes are going to be able to have different permissions and also different groups. So you can actually create custom attributes like groups and permissions on a user or project level. And then also custom attributes can also be created at the system settings. So a side note is that when you create a custom attribute in system settings, it is going to be available on all projects. Whereas when you create a custom attribute at the project level, by default, it'll be for that project, but you can edit those settings here in the system settings. So under system settings, advanced custom attributes is where you can do that. So here I can create or edit new ones, delete them. I can even manually sort them. So like the task types, the order, the top-down order will also affect how these attributes are shown, specifically in the side panel. And of course, don't forget to save. So here I'm going to go ahead and delete the attribute. And then when we create an attribute, as I mentioned, attributes can be created or assigned to have different permissions based off roles. And we're going to get into roles here a little bit later. But if let's say I wanted to create an attribute that I didn't want to share with the my entire team based off of what my team's roles are, I can prevent them from either reading or writing to that attribute. And such. So here, what we're looking at is the different custom attribute groups. This is more of an organizational tool, and what is really great about this is that, especially when you start adding a lot of custom attributes, it's going to be easier to access these things when you've created groups for them, as opposed to like a drop-down like a menu that you have to traverse through. This is entirely optional, but it's a nice organizational tool, like a tool to have. And then if I open up the side panel, I can see the custom attribute group here in the info tab of the task that I've selected. So as I mentioned, like with the different type of custom attributes, like when you have like a Boolean, it's a checkbox. The enumerator would be the drop-down menu, dynamic enumerators drop-down menu from the API. And then in the next session, we're going to actually be going over expressions and links in more depth. But expressions are going to be a very powerful tool when creating custom attributes. So when you create an expression, it is going to like the other attributes or custom attributes, it's going to want to know what you're tagging the expression to. So is it going to be like a task, a shot, a list, like an asset. And then we want to select the results. Is it going to be a text or like return back a number? And then we're going to write the expression. So all expressions are going to be contained within curly brackets. And expressions are going to be very similar to if you're already using like expressions and functions within like Excel or Google Sheets, it's going to use a very similar syntax. So we're going to run calculations against like properties to return different data sets. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom attribute group called producers group. And then I am going to create two new custom attributes. The first one is going to be called rate. And you notice under the create attribute dialog is that we have a label and a name. So the label is what you see within the UI. The name is is how you call it within the API. How you call things and how you label them will affect how they're shown like within Ftrack. So we're going to select the group. We set the result type as a number, and then we are going to control the permissions, the read-write permissions of it. So I don't want my end users, like my artists, to be able to see this rate, because in this particular example, the rate would be the value that or like the hourly rate of the artist, and that might not be something that I want to share all the way down the pipeline. So the next one is going to be the sum, which is going to be, I'm also going to tag it to the task. And then we're going to write an expression. So the expression that we're going to write is going to be self rate times self worked. So what does this mean? Well, the self rate, or the rate, is the attribute that we've just created. So this is going to return a value that we input in the test spreadsheet, and it's going to be multiplied by the logged hours. So this is going to give us a sum. So then we can test the attribute, like to validate it. If it was showing up, like a red flag, it will prompt you to say maybe it's a syntax error, or it's not a known attribute that you're calling, or maybe there's another error within it. And then again, we'll add this one to the producers group, and then we're going to control the read-write permissions of this attribute. So back in Ftrack, we are going to, or sorry, back in the task view, we're going to go to the custom attributes, the producers group custom attributes that we just created, and then select the rate and sum attributes. We are going to save that view. And then from here, we can then add those different values, or we can repeat the steps that we had before, where we can log in the worked hours, and the sum will be multiplied by the rate and the worked hours. All right. So now getting into custom attribute links. Now this is actually was introduced in Ftrack 4.8, and so it's a new feature that we rolled out. And the power behind this is it allows you to link attributes across projects. So in this example, what we're going to do is we are going to create two new projects. And one project is going to host information about the cameras that we want to use for the other project, so we don't have to duplicate data on a per project basis. We can reference those data sets from a master project, which we're calling camera. So the breakdown is we're going to create the custom object, which will be a camera. We're going to create the workflow schema for the camera. We're going to create a new project, and then we're going to add cameras to it. And then we're going to create the actual project that will be tasked to our artists, and we're going to call that show. And then we're going to create a custom attribute links to show the relationship between the show project and the camera project, or specifically the cameras. And then we're going to assign the custom attribute links to the shots. All right. So starting with the custom attribute, we're going to, or custom object, I should say, we're going to go into system settings under workflow and objects. And for simplicity, we're not going to add priority, type, or status. We're just going to create an object, and we're going to call that object cameras. So we're going to select the camera icon and priority, and then we're going to save it. Next, we're going to create the workflow schema. So under schemas, we're going to create a new schema. We're going to call it cameras. And then we are going to add the camera object that we created. And then we're just going to go through and add the statuses and types for that particular project. And again, we're going to keep it generic or simple. We're going to have the types as generic and the statuses as normal, because this is going to be just hosting the camera information that is going to be shared across multiple projects. So next, we're going to create a new project called cameras. Use the workflow schema that we just created. And then we are going to create a camera from the dropdown. And the first one we're going to create is going to be a GoPro. So from the GoPro, we're seeing some of the basic information with it. But what we want to do next is we want to add the resolution, the camera resolution of the GoPro. And we want to be able to see that across multiple projects. So we're going to create a custom attribute for our cameras and add that attribute to the project. So here from the system settings, we're going to go back into custom attributes. We're going to create a new attribute. We're going to call it camera resolution. We're going to add it to the camera object that we created. This is going to be a numerator. And remember, a numerator is a drop-down menu. And so the menu value that you're seeing right now is going to show what is seen again in the UI, and then what is read in the API. So the menu one is the value seen in the UI. The value one is what the API reads it as. So we're going to put down some different camera resolutions, going from 1080 up to 8K. And we're going to create that. We're going to go back into the camera project, select the GoPro, and then under the info tab, we can see the camera resolution, and then we can add the camera resolution to that particular camera. And then we can add it also to the task spreadsheet view. And then we'll go ahead and save that view as the camera res view. Next, we'll create a new camera. We'll create an ARI and repeat the process. And when we created these, right now, I believe we just added these as like a single selections, but with enumerators, you can actually create these enumerators to have multiple selections, and we'll see that here in a moment. So we're going to go ahead and create a red, and then we're going to organize based on organize by resolution. So now we're going to create the custom attribute links, and then we're going to do this under the system settings, under advanced and custom attributes. So like the other custom attributes we created, we're going to give it a name, and we're going to add the link to the shot, and then we're going to create the link type, and then we're going to what do we want to link it to? Well, we're going to link it to the camera entity that we created previously, and we're going to have this as multi-selection. As sometimes takes or shots will have multiple takes using different cameras. Go ahead and create that. So now we're going to create the show project. And then I've already created that. And here I have some shots that I've created. So shot 10 through, or sorry, shot 1 through 7. I'm going to select the shot, open up the side panel under the info tab, and then click on the shot versus camera, which is going to bring up a new dialog. Now, an important note here is that here, when I clicked on show, by default, it's going to show the custom attributes or the linked attributes within the show. But if I unselect that, it's going to show me all the linked custom attributes. So we want to unselect this so we can select the different cameras, or so like the different cameras can show up. And then we now have added the GoPro camera to shot 1. And if I go into the attributes, custom attributes, shot first camera linked, you can see that the GoPro has been added here. Now I'm going to shift select multiple shots and then add a different camera. So here's the ARRI. And then I'm going to do the same for 5 and 6, the BMD, and then the red for shot 7. Or sorry, GoPro and red for the shot 7. So go ahead and save this view. And then we're going to add the shot first camera on that view. And then if I click on the cameras on the shot first camera attribute to open up the side panel, what we'll see is the link where it's linking from and where it's linking to. So from and to. So it will show me that this particular camera is being used on shots 2, 3, and 4. So what's really great about this is if you had multiple projects, it would show that across multiple projects as well. And also included is the resolution that that particular camera is using. And then in the camera project, we can also, if we add the shots from shots first camera linked attribute that we created and expand it so we can see more information, save that view. And if we open up the camera side panel, here we'll see what it's linked to and the attributes that it's associated with. So next, we're going to look at the Ftrack review lifecycle. And we're going to start by creating a task. And we're going to assign that task to our artist. And that artist is going to receive a notification that they've received a task assignment. So what's going to happen next is the artist is going to change the status, which is going to update the status what the producer sees. And then he is going to update or upload his version for review. So the producer is going to look at the task side panel, open up the versions tab, and launch the version in the review player, and we'll be able to write notes and make that note as a completable task. So this will be something that the artist will then have to check off to know that task has been completed. And it's also a great tool to show which notes or tasks are, I should specifically say notes are outstanding. So artist is go ahead and uploading the next version. He sees a reference material, mark the completed task. And then he's going to go ahead and upload the same or another new version, calling it the same, but because Ftrack recognizes the version already exists, he's seeing it's going to auto version it to version 2. So in the versions tab, he'll look at version 2, use the built-in annotation tools, to draw on the frame, write the note, and then post it. And then the artist will repeat the process, get the note with the annotation, iterate and update the version. Again, using the same name, but like versioning it up to version 3 automatically. And then a feature that we added recently was the @ feature. So right now in this example, the producer wants to get some feedback from another member of his production. So he's tagging Helena in like this comment, asking to get her feedback. So she'll receive a notification. And she'll be able to view the content and comment on it, which will update the inbox so the producer can then approve the version status and the task status, thereby letting the artist know that the task has been approved, and then they can go on to the next task. So we can also upload multiple versions. And when doing so, something like the naming convention is going to be relevant. So here we can see that we have multiple versions with a space between like the version name and like the version itself. So when we upload, Ftrack will read the version and match the version numbers between the two of them. Now, the web player also has the ability to compare versions. If we select or shift select the versions, open up the web player, on the lower right, you'll see, sorry, the lower left, like from the drop up or little box, you can toggle between versions, and you can also find that from the drop down menu on the upper left. And then here we can compare versions either by a side-by-side comparison for playback, or we can use the overlay feature. As such. So playing sequences, so we can select multiple versions from different shots and review them in the player. From the lower left, we can toggle between the versions by selecting them to launch them in the player. And then from the right, like the side panel view, if we hit playlist, we can actually rearrange the order of those clips by dragging them into the position we want. So working with lists, and now this is really going to be the preferred method of when creating or doing reviews. So when you'll select or shift select the versions that you want to add to a review session, right click, and then say add to list, which you can add to an existing one, create a new one, or even remove one. And then you will give the list a name and then define the category. And the category is a list category, which is configurable in the system settings. So here under the list, we can see the dropdown, and then we can launch the list from the web player. So this is going to be a very accessible and easier way for users to access playlists that have been created by someone else. So here we have Helena accessing the list that the producer created, and then she can launch in the web player. So not too long ago, we added the ability to have synced reviews. So to create a synced review session, all one needs to do is start the join sync, and then the participant on the other side will hit join sync, and then they will see live playback of the controls of what version is being reviewed, including things like we have like a laser pointer tool, so we can use a temporary annotations that don't stick. Now, Ftrack comes with two review systems, an internal review and a client review. So the client review is designed to work with what we call collaborators, and those are people outside of your organization. And then collaborators are going to only be able to see what you share with them. And when they comment on something, it is going to notify the person who created the review first before the notes are committed back into the database. So here we'll select the list that we just created, shift select. Instead of going to list, we're going to go to client review, and we're going to create from selection, give that client review a name, and then we're going to control some of the security settings, things like the start and end date, send notifications, and then we can share this with our collaborators either by adding their names in emails in the share review by email, or we also added the ability to create a URL. So you'll just create like a copy of the URL created and then send that in an email thread. And then when the collaborator opens that link, it's going to prompt him or her to like input their name, so you know who the review is coming from, like the notes and comments are coming from. As such. And here we can see the annotations being made by the collaborator, which, as I mentioned, will first notify the person that has created the review. So one of the main reasons for this is to give you the opportunity to edit a comment. So in this particular case, our collaborator has wrote something that is less than gracious, and we don't want our artists to see that. So before the notes are committed back to the database, we need to go through a process of transferring the feedback. So back in Ftrack, there's a button called Transfer Feedback, which is on the lower right. When we select it, it's going to open up a new window, and it's going to show us all the notes that have been created. It's going to highlight any new notes that have been created in the session, like in purple, and it's going to give us the opportunity to omit a note. So we're going to take out that one note, and then we're going to write a little bit more constructive note to help the artists bring it to final. And then we're going to transfer it. Once we transfer it, then it's been committed to the database, and then the artist will be notified and can go through the iteration process again. So next, we're going to talk about customizing access to projects based off of user roles. So we're going to create a restricted user role, set the access level, show tasks within a date range with a query filter, add custom statuses to a schema, set custom status as unmapped to hide tasks in a task board, and set map statuses to reveal tasks in a task board. So starting within the Gantt scheduler, right now you can see that I have all my tasks already scheduled out, and then I'm going to group them by assignee. So we can see all of Lucy's tasks cascading down. So if Lucy logs in the My Task view, this is going to show her all of her assigned work. But one thing that we want to be aware of is that currently Lucy's role or permission allows her to see things that maybe we don't want her to have access to, like the overview page or the project specific page or even the reports. So this is right now she has the same permissions as the producer. So we want to limit that access. So the first thing we're going to do is, Lucy's going to log out, and then we're going to go back into the system settings, and then we are going to go under users and groups, select Lucy's role, and then we're going to remove the administrator role, and we're going to add a restricted user role. and save the changes. So when Lucy logs in again, she no longer has access to the overview or like the project settings. And then those roles can be customized or addressed by the role editor, which is under System Settings, Security Roles. So here we have the restricted user, and then this is showing us the different permissions that this person has. So right now she has access to change the status of her task, but if we wanted to restrict it even further, we could go ahead under the restricted user and we could disable the change status of a task. So now she can no longer make those commit those changes. But we're going to go ahead and re-enable that so she can make those changes accordingly. Now, next, what we want to do is we are going to write a query filter that is going to limit the amount of information that we see specific to like a date range. And you're going to do that under the filters query. So we're seeing here is like the syntax is end date is greater than today's date. And so it's going to show me like any tasks, or it's going to only show me any like tasks like whose end date is greater than today's current date. So we're going to add to that and end date is less than 5 days out. And so this is the syntax. End date greater than today, which is a function, and end date is less than days, also a function, are basically 5 days. So here we can go through and change the amount of days that we see this. So 7, 5, 3, and we're going to put this back to 5. And then we are going to group these by user and then save that view. Now we're going to go ahead and create a custom status. And we're going to use this custom status to exclude tasks that we don't want the artist to see yet. So we're going to call this hidden from my tasks, and this is going to correspond with state. Now, a quick word on state. All task types or types will have a state that correspond to 4 different states, not started, in progress, done, or blocked. Now, this is hard-coded, and all statuses or like will correspond with these, and you can like if you have a custom status, it's going to map to one of these 4 states. So next, we're going to go to the schema, and then we're going to add the status that we created. And then we are going to again go to the task board. And what we're going to see here is we're going to show like how these statuses are mapped to different columns. So the my task column is what's going to be seen by the artist. And what we're seeing on the left are the unmapped statuses. So by default, like an artist will not see unmapped statuses. So when we assign a task, like in this particular case, hidden from my task, and it's unmapped, the artist won't have access to it. So if I go back into the project, and then I'm going to group by assignee, and then I'm going to change Lucy's task assignments to hidden. You're going to see those are going to be removed from her my task view. And if I see the next 5 days, we are seeing only these tasks that are from 5 days out. So when using that filter, I can show only the tasks that are going to be due within the next 5 days, and then I can change that status from hidden to not started. And then Lucy will only see those 5 tasks opposed to all the tasks that she was initially assigned to. So this is going to wrap up the demo portion of this webinar. I want to say thanks to Trem, Justin, Mahe, and Vitaly, Brian, and special thanks to my other colleague, Dan Harvey, that was also organizing was giving his own webinar in the EU. And I would also like to say that one of the great strengths that I love about Ftrack is that I've been with the company for 4 years now, and Dan, who has been with us for about 4 or 5 months, has found very unique and very useful ways to show some of this information. So I'm always learning something new, and I really do appreciate the time and effort that everyone put into this webinar. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Justin.
Thank you, Eric. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We are a bit short on time, so we're going to just run through a couple questions quickly. I did see one from Warwick in the chat. And he asked, Eric, can you manually ingest asset and shot and task using a CSV? And I saw Tommy did post a link to the help.ftrack article, but if we could jump into that a little bit for some more context, that'd be wonderful.
Sure, yes. So the import tool is going to map attributes between the CSV that you created and then when you import it into to Ftrack. So it's first going to ask you what each column represents. So things like, is this an object? Is this a task? And then once you've gone through and saved that mapping or apply the mapping, you can then save it and then it will import that the information based off those attributes that you mapped it to. So yes, you can map different attributes and different objects into Ftrack using a CSV.
Excellent. And I just saw another one pop through from Dave. What does the F in Ftrack stand for? It's a good pub quiz question.
Sure. Well, the joke is, or maybe not the joke. Well, our CEO is his name is Frederick Limsater, so Frederick's track. But Ftrack was initially designed as a production management tool from a VFX studio in Stockholm called Fido. They're now called Goodbye Kansas. So Ftrack was also a possible. It's kind of one of those little known unknown sort of things where there's an idea of where it started from, but those that started ain't telling.
A fun track, yeah, that's a good one too. That was from Beth. Excellent. So yeah, we are coming up. We're about 5 minutes over. So please, if any other questions come up, Mahe, thank you so much for putting this together. But you feel free to reach out to us either at sales@ftrack.com or support@ftrack.com for any other questions. Please check out ftrack.com/webinars for any of our upcoming webinars. We really appreciate your participation and attendance. Hope you found this helpful. And like I said, if you need to get in touch with us, sales@ftrack.com or support@ftrack.com. We are always here to chat, answer your questions, and tell you a bit more about Ftrack. From the whole team at Ftrack, we really appreciate you spending your time with us. And I hope there was something that you took away from the session that you found helpful. As always, thank you so much for attending and have a wonderful day. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.